Is all supermarket bread complete and total garbage? The first thing to know is this: some of the healthiest breads out there are actually the worst. For thousands of years, we've eaten bread that's looked something like this. Just 3 ingredients: flour, water, and salt. Nowadays, this is what most of us actually eat. Bread that never molds, is crazy soft and sweet, and has a huge list of unpronounceable ingredients that read like a chemistry lesson. Now, this Wonder Bread is among the worst of a bad bunch, but there's a ton of other packaged breads, even premium brands, that look like they're healthy. In reality, they're stuffed with ultra-processed junk that delivers empty calories and spikes your blood sugar. But lovely people, do not fret. In this video, I'll help you cut through all the marketing baloney so you know exactly what to look for when buying bread from the grocery store, what to avoid, and yes, which breads you can feel good about eating. Because if there's one thing I've learned from looking at just about every supermarket bread, it's this: never, ever trust the name of a bread or how it's branded, the pretty picture of the wheat, or the promise that it promotes digestive health, or is free of preservatives. Ignore what it boasts about: number of grains, seeds, ancient grains, even organic. It doesn't matter what the bread is called. You have to check the ingredients. So, having combed through countless ingredients lists, I've found 3. Yes, literally just 3 breads that I can recommend, but with one standout winner. Let's start with the most important ingredient to any healthy bread. It's really simple. The first ingredient listed on any store-bought bread should always say whole wheat. So, take this Whole Foods 365 8-grain bread. Sounds great, right? Well, the first ingredient listed is unbleached wheat flour. This means white flour. White flour has had the germ and bran removed. These are the only parts of the wheat grain that contain vitamins, minerals, and good healthy fats. Now, bleached flour is even worse. That means the wheat has been processed with chemicals to make it look white and to strengthen the gluten. Bleaching helps the bread rise faster and better. But nutritionally, both bleached and unbleached flour are refined grains, which means they are simple starches that will spike your blood sugar. So, to be clear, avoid them both, bleached and unbleached white flour. Okay, now things get fun, because here comes the buzzy bread words that are designed to trick you. Multigrain is one of them. Multigrain does not mean the bread contains healthy, whole grains. It just means it contains a variety of different grains, none of which have to be whole grains. Doesn't matter if it's 12 grain or 15 grain or 22 grain. More often than not, your multigrain bread is made with refined flour. You have to check the ingredient list for the word whole. Does it say whole wheat? Like this Dave's Killer Bread, 21 whole grains and seeds. Yes, it is indeed whole grains, whole wheat. Great, love it. We'll come back to this loaf in a second though. Wait till you see how much sugar it has. Now, what about cracked wheat? Cracked wheat is the same as whole wheat, but ground a little coarser. So it's good. But again, never trust the name of a bread. You have to check the ingredient list. Sometimes cracked wheat only refers to a few cracked wheat flakes dusted on the bread for looks. The first ingredient should still always say whole wheat or whole cracked wheat. Okay, so let's talk about sugar. When I teach my students how to make sourdough, you know how much sugar I tell them to use? 0. And that's because it doesn't need sugar. Bread should never need sugar. Now, if you're making home-baked bread with instant yeast and the recipe calls for a pinch of sugar to prove the yeast, that's fine. And the occasional honey bread is a lovely treat. My mom makes a delicious honey bread. But what I'm talking about here is the bread you eat day in and day out. It should not contain added sugar. So why do we find sugar in so many supermarket loaves? 1, for color, it helps get that perfect shade of brown that people associate with health. 2, it can act as a preservative, extending the bread's shelf life. And 3, American tastes run sweet. That's the truth of it. Let's take a look at this Arnold 100% whole wheat. First ingredient is whole wheat, good. But here I see sugar and honey, bringing the total to 3 grams of sugar per slice. And look at this multigrain loaf of Dave's Killer Bread. Look at the sugar, 5 grams per slice. To put that in sandwich language, that's over 2 teaspoons of sugar in your lunch. By the way, that's double the sugar you'll find in 2 slices of our old friend Wonder Bread. But that's something I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole for a multitude of other reasons we'll get into. The point is, even nutritious-sounding supermarket bread is often problematic. Remember, never pay attention to the name or description. Why is this loaf of Dave's 21 grains loaded with so much sugar? It's why almost every loaf of multigrain bread is loaded with sugar, to counter the natural bitterness that many of these grains have. And as we know, American tastes run sweet. So we want our bread high in protein, high fiber, but we don't want it to taste like it's healthy. Good rule of thumb, try to keep the sugar in your bread down to just 2 grams per slice or less. Vegetable oils. So many supermarket breads contain oils. Soybean, canola, sunflower oil. That's fat that doesn't have to be there. So why is it? Because producers use it to make their bread softer, and oil makes it stay softer for longer. Oil traps moisture to keep the bread from drying out and turning stale. When you combine those qualities with preservatives, you get a freakish Frankenstein bread that will never go moldy. This points to the heart of the problem. Bread is something that's eaten daily, and if it's made with real ingredients, it should only last a few days. But most of the bread in your grocery store is made to last for weeks. Listen, I do get it. No one wants to pay for bread and watch it go moldy. But at what cost? At the cost of your health? We're consuming all these preservatives and additives and mystery ingredients on a daily basis that we don't actually need, when we could just keep our bread in the fridge, or even better, in the freezer, to help it last longer. So, vegetable oils. Red flag, steer clear. Now, let's get to those mystery ingredients. Let's go back to that Wonder Bread. After we get past the refined flour and sugar, we get sodium stearoyl lactylate, monoglycerides, calcium peroxide, ascorbic acid, soy lecithin? Your bread should not contain ingredients you don't understand. These chemicals are dough conditioners, emulsifiers, and preservatives. They're in your bread to extend the shelf life and to mimic the taste and texture of real bread that was once only achievable through long, slow, natural fermentation. The same kind of fermentation process I use to make my sourdough bread. See, supermarket bread needs to be made fast and cheap. Real bread is neither of those things. In order for real bread to rise, it needs hours to fully ferment. This not only gives you a delightfully airy, chewy crumb, it gives the natural yeast and bacteria time to unlock the nutrition in the wheat so that your body can better absorb it when you eat it. Real bread cannot be made in big industrial machines. The dough is too sensitive, it will tear. But producers get around these challenges by artificially strengthening their dough with the help of all these chemicals. And that brings us to the problem of gluten. Every single one of these breads contains an ingredient called wheat gluten. Sometimes it's called vital wheat gluten. Okay, here's your 101 on gluten. Gluten is a natural protein found in wheat. When you mix flour with water, these gluten proteins bind together to form a strong, stretchy web that gives bread its structure. Without gluten, you get a dense, gummy brick. But if gluten protein is inherent in the wheat, Why do bread manufacturers need to add extra gluten? Good question. Again, it's that industrial process. It's too fast, too powerful for real bread. Real bread needs gentle, slow fermentation. So to get around that, manufacturers pump up their dough with added gluten. I literally could not find a single brand of supermarket bread that did not contain added gluten. Even my winner for best supermarket bread, which I'll reveal in just a bit, contains added gluten. Now, we all know that gluten sensitivity is on the rise, and there are multiple theories about why that's the case. I don't want to get into the weeds in this video, but what I will say is that we're eating more processed food than ever before, and it's making us sick. Our bread is pumped up with all this extra gluten, and in many cases made from wheat genetically engineered to withstand glyphosate, aka Roundup, a weed killer that has been linked with cancer. Honestly, this is one of the key reasons why I make my own bread, so I can control the ingredients I put in my body every day. And it tastes better. Now, before I reveal my 3 top choices for healthy store-bought bread, just a quick word on gluten-free and low-carb, because many of these breads are worse. Just look at the ingredient list. Chock full of highly refined starches and plenty of mystery ingredients. Cornstarch, potato starch, rice starch, modified cellulose, inverted cane syrup. There are a few exceptions like this one, Base Culture's keto bread. But I haven't eaten this bread, so honestly, I can't tell you how it tastes. But even if you have a gluten sensitivity, always choose bread with ingredients in their whole form, as unrefined as possible, period. Okay, lovely people, it's time to reveal my top 3 picks for store-bought bread. We'll start with the winner. It's one I haven't shown you yet. It's Ezekiel sprouted bread. I have here their sprouted whole grain, but honestly, you can't go wrong with any Ezekiel loaf. Their short list of recognizable ingredients is way better than any bread you can find in the grocery store, with the one disappointing addition, added wheat gluten. It's the one common ingredient I found in every supermarket bread, but no sugars, no oils, no yucky dough conditioners or preservatives, and all the grains are sprouted. This natural process makes their nutrients more available to your body. By the way, you'll usually find Ezekiel in the freezer or refrigerator section of your supermarket, because remember, it doesn't contain preservatives, and that's how I recommend you store it at home. Okay, runner-up is this Power Seed Loaf by Dave's Killer Bread. This is the red bag. Stay away from all the other Dave's Killer loaves, the green, the yellow, the pink. They're all higher in sugar or spiked with oils. This loaf keeps the sugar low, only 1 gram per slice, and it's all derived from organic fruit juice. Now, my 3rd pick is Silver Hills Big 16, an organic whole grain loaf with sprouted wheat and oats. The serving size is 2 slices, so that brings the sugar to 1.5 grams per slice. It doesn't contain any oils, but it does have 1 dough conditioner preservative, ascorbic acid. That's synthetic vitamin C. In other words, vitamin C created in a lab. I don't love that it's here, but it's one versus a whole cocktail of chemicals found in most other whole wheat breads. Of course, if you know this channel, you know that I make all the bread my family eats. If you want to learn how to make delicious sourdough, my easy online course can help you do just that, even if you've never made a loaf of sourdough bread in your life. Seriously, real bread. Sign up for a free trial. I've got the link in the description and also here, maybe here, somewhere.